What's good? This is Marcus the Fingaz, Dafingaz. Why did I just clap? Because day 26, August 26th, is my birthday. That's actually the reason why I wanted to do this Syncrets To Success podcast. I wanted to launch it in August. I didn't necessarily plan on doing the whole every day of the month thing, but that's the way it turned out, and I stuck with it. And here we are, almost done. So I just got a couple more days to go through. But day 26, this is I'm entering chapter 39. So getting older, wiser, and I'm just now getting into sync licensing. So the best way for me to learn about a new space that I'm getting into is to teach about it. One of the best ways to learn is to teach. Of course, another great way is to get coaches, to get join communities that are involved in what you want to learn, and of course to do courses or read books. So I have some of that on the way. Of course, I do have the community. Join the Syncrets To Success Facebook group. It is a free community. You can join and you can network. You can find collaborators. You can find libraries there. So about once a month, maybe more often, I say, hey, any new libraries here? What are you looking for? What projects are you working for? But I just posted a couple days ago asking libraries to post what they're looking for, and a lot of libraries posted like, hey, we're looking for this type of thing. We're working on these projects. So great group. Join that. There's a link in the description. Syncrets To Success on Facebook. I talk really fast, so play this at half speed if you need more time to digest what I'm saying. But today, day 26, on my birthday, we're tackling the crucial aspect of clearing samples and securing copyright clearances. It's a complex process, and it's essential to avoid legal complications. Now, as the creator, very rarely do we have to, this episode would really be like 2 seconds, because very rarely do we have to clear samples. Now, the process of clearing samples does involve getting like the licenses, permissions, the copyrighted material. If you're using pieces of the master, you need to get permission from people who own the master and the publishing. So as a reminder, if you're not familiar with those sides, the master is basically the recording. If the song was recorded at a studio, a lot of times the record label or the studio might even own the master. The publishing is the song itself, the lyrics, the songwriting, the arrangement. The master is more like the instrumentation. The publishing is more like the lyrics. So you have to clear both sides. If you're doing a cover, as we mentioned a couple episodes ago, and you're taking away all the instrumentation, and you're doing your own instrumentation, all you have to do is clear the publishing. You don't have to clear the master because you're not using that master recording. So it is confusing, but once you wrap your head around it, it does make sense in this confusing world. But if you're using snippets of the music, vocals, other audio elements of an existing song that you didn't create yourself, and it's not like a royalty-free sample, which we'll talk about a little bit in this episode, you want to make sure you clear that stuff. Clearing samples is essential to ensure that your music can be legally used in sync placement. Before pitching your music, always research the sample clearance requirements for each composition. Some samples may be easier to clear than others, and some may come with higher costs and complexities. You can use platforms like TrackLib, I think, that help clear samples. Personally, I don't use samples I don't use existing song, like samples from songs in the sync licensing space unless I'm trailerizing a song or unless I'm specifically asked to do a sort of remix or cover or asked to sample a song for a sync placement by a library or a project. And that rarely happens. If I have to do that, I can do that. I spent about 3 years in a sample group called the Producers Corner on Facebook, and every week they had a challenge, a new sample that you had to flip, and you would enter these challenges. So for about 3 years nonstop, I was entering these challenges. So I have hundreds of sample-based beats. I used to not be a sample producer because I was like, I can't do it like Kanye West. I can't sample like these big producers. So it's like, I play keys. So it's like, I'll just make my own samples. And then I joined this group, started doing these samples, started getting my sample sound. And that was sort of like my incubator for doing my sample production. So yeah, I don't do it a lot these days, like I said, unless I have to for a sync thing or trailer thing. So understand the potential complexities and costs associated with sample clearance is crucial. Clearing samples can be time-consuming and expensive, depending on the nature of the sample and the original rights holders. Be prepared for this reality and factor it into your sync licensing strategy. Even if you want to do a cover or remix, and you're like, hey, I want to cover this song, do your research, because not all artists are fans of people doing covers of their song. And then not all libraries want to sign covers. Some libraries just want originals, some libraries just want instrumentals, some libraries want vocals also. So you have to do your research on all these different elements. When you create sample-free compositions or use royalty-free samples, that can be valuable for the sample clearing process. Even with royalty-free, a lot of libraries don't like Splice. They will say, do not use Splice. We don't want any Splice samples. I mentioned before, like one-shots might be fine, as just like a drum sound, a drum kick, maybe that's fine. But a sample loop from Splice, a lot of libraries don't want it. It's better to be on the side of safety. So I wouldn't use like the Splice samples or the arcade loops or, whatever loops you find. Apple loops might be fine, but even then, like flip it, like make sure that it is not recognizable at all, that you're sampling it, you're pitching it, you're chopping it, you're moving it around. If it's like, there's some samples that it's like, okay, there's some guitar riffs that are like the guitar riff in discos, like, you know, they're using every disco song. So it's like, okay, if it's just like a strum on the chord, on the one chord, maybe that's fine. But I would just say err on the side of caution when you're dealing with samples and royalty-free libraries. When you're dealing with samples, also, it might help to work with like legal experts or clearance services, or to just make sure that you're researching, samples in sync. Do a Google search, samples in sync. How does that work? There are some great YouTube videos, people talking about using samples in sync, including this one, if you want to call this one great. But professionals can guide you. It's been talked about ad nauseum. So there are rules. Most people say just avoid it as much as possible. So make sure that your compositions comply with copyright laws, and make sure that if you are sampling, that you're getting the clearance and obtaining the clearance copyright. It is a meticulous process. If you are working with a library that has requested a specific sample, most libraries will work with either the project that requested the sample, either the client will have the clearances that they'll work on whatever paperwork is needed to get things cleared. For example, this cover that I worked on a couple days ago, me and the artist, we don't have to do anything on the clearance side. We send it to the library. The library is like, this is great. They send it to the project, the client. They said the client is looking into putting it into their project. So fingers crossed we land that. And all the clearances will happen on their end for that cover. So nothing that we have to do on our end to secure that license for those songs. So that wraps up day 26, the birthday episode of Syncrets To Success. Thank you all for joining. Thank you all for watching these episodes. Maybe I'll launch maybe I'll talk about this podcast on today because it's my birthday. So maybe I'll talk about it. Then people will have 4 or 5 more days left of the podcast. So tomorrow, day 27, come back to check out more Syncrets To Success. Until then, join the Facebook group. Reach out, hit up my website, thefingaz.com. Go to thefingaz.com/services if you want to talk about any one-on-one chat about sync, trailers, networking, anything like that. Let's have a chat. And I will see you tomorrow on day 27. All right. Peace.